All right, get ready to dive into something special today. We're picturing you saying I do under the Spanish sun, surrounded by beaches or vineyards, maybe even a historic castle. Dreamy, right?
Definitely sounds like a dream.
Well, today we're turning that dream into a plan. We've got excerpts from a guide all about destination weddings in Spain, and we're about to break it all down for you.
What I find fascinating is that Spain is so much more than just a pretty setting for your wedding. I mean, over 300 days of sunshine a year.
Yeah, that practically guarantees a beautiful outdoor ceremony. No stressing about backup plans if the weather decides to be unpredictable.
Exactly. And the people are incredibly warm and welcoming. It's not just a pretty place, it's a place where you and your guests will truly feel welcomed and celebrated.
Okay, so sunshine and warm welcomes. We're off to a great start already. But let's talk about those incredible venues. Beaches, vineyards, charming countryside estates.
Don't forget those architectural marvels like Gaudi's creations.
Oh, absolutely. And here's the best part. A Spanish wedding can actually be more affordable than other European destinations.
That's true. And if we think about someone who loves history and unique experiences, Spain really delivers. Imagine your wedding photos set against Roman ruins.
Or intricate Moorish architecture. Yeah, you don't find that just anywhere.
Definitely not.
Now let's talk about traditions. I'm a big fan of those visual traditions, and the Spanish tradition of the orange blossom crown is just breathtaking.
Oh, it's beautiful and so symbolic, too. Those orange blossoms represent purity and fertility, adding a really meaningful layer to the ceremony.
And there are so many other intriguing traditions, like the arras.
Ah, yes, the 13 gold coins.
Exactly. They symbolize the groom's commitment to providing for the family. It's like starting your marriage on a solid financial footing, right?
It's a beautiful sentiment.
Then you've got the classic rice throwing for prosperity. Always makes for fun photos. And get this, the groom's tie gets cut up and auctioned off at the reception.
You're not kidding. The energy at those receptions is just incredible.
I can only imagine. And we can't forget about the midnight snack of hot chocolate and churros. Seriously, how can you resist a country that knows how to celebrate with delicious treats like that?
You really can't.
Okay, but now the big question is, when should you have this amazing Spanish wedding? Because every season in Spain has something special to offer.
That's true. Spring, for example, brings blooming flowers and mild weather. It's perfect for a romantic setting, and you might even find better deals since it's before the peak season rush.
That makes sense. But there's one thing to keep in mind with spring.
Right, some resorts, especially those on the coast, might not be fully open yet.
Good point. Now, summer is peak season for a reason. Those long, sunny days are perfect for a beach wedding. But of course, that also means things get booked up fast.
And prices tend to be a bit higher.
Yeah, that's true.
And another thing to consider with summer is the heat. That Spanish sun can be intense, especially inland. So if you're set on a summer wedding, an evening ceremony might be more comfortable. That golden hour light is just magical anyway.
Definitely. Okay, so we've got spring and summer covered. What about fall?
Fall in Spain is still really pleasant temperature-wise, and there are fewer crowds compared to the summer months.
I can see fall being perfect for those vineyard weddings we mentioned earlier.
Oh, absolutely. Picture this saying, I do, surrounded by rolling hills, the vines heavy with grapes ready for harvest. Pure magic.
Now that sounds incredible.
It really is.
But there's one thing we should probably mention about fall.
Right. Rainfall tends to increase in November. So if you're thinking late fall, keep that in mind.
All right, so spring, summer, fall. Now for a curveball. Winter. It might not be the first season that comes to mind for a wedding, but Spain rarely gets freezing cold.
And imagine the possibilities. A cozy wedding in a historic castle or a chic city celebration with festive lights everywhere.
Well, that sounds so charming.
It really is. And winter is the most budget-friendly time to get married in Spain. Venues are less in demand, so you might find some great deals.
I bet. But what are the trade-offs?
Well, many beach resorts are closed during the winter months, and some outdoor spaces might not be suitable in the cooler temperatures.
Okay, that makes sense. So we've got 4 very different seasons, each with its own perks. But now comes the fun part, deciding where in Spain you want to say, I do. And the options are pretty amazing. Coast, countryside, city. Spain really has it all.
Let's start with the coast. The Costa del Sol is always a popular choice, especially with those luxurious resorts in Marbella.
Marbella is stunning.
It really is. But if you're picturing a beach wedding, one thing to remember is that those often require permits. So start looking into that early on in the planning process.
Good to know. Now, what about the Costa Brava? It's got a slightly different vibe, right?
It does. It's got charming towns like Tossa de Mar. It's a historic setting right by the sea. Just imagine your wedding photos with those medieval walls as a backdrop and the Mediterranean sparkling behind you.
Wow, that's a picture-perfect setting.
It really is.
And of course, we can't forget about the Balearic Islands, Ibiza, Majorca.
They've got those pristine beaches and a vibrant island energy.
All right, so we've got beach bliss covered. But what if our couple is more drawn to the countryside?
Then Andalusia is calling their name. It's home to those stunning haciendas.
Those traditional country estates.
Exactly. They're nestled among rolling hills, olive groves. You can even find them near vineyards.
And speaking of vineyards, imagine getting married among the vines in regions like La Rioja or Ribera del Duero. Talk about a romantic setting.
Oh, it's incredibly romantic. And then there's always the option of a parador wedding.
Now, remind me what a parador is.
They're historic buildings like castles or monasteries that have been converted into hotels.
Ah, yes.
It's a beautiful blend of history, luxury, and maybe even a touch of fairy tale magic.
Okay, so we've got beach bliss, countryside charm, and fairy tale settings. But what if our couple is dreaming of a city wedding?
Well, Spain has some of the most vibrant cities in Europe. Barcelona, with its iconic Gaudi architecture, offers an amazing mix of art and urban excitement.
Barcelona is definitely on my travel bucket list.
It should be. Then you've got Madrid, the capital city. It's a hub of culture and sophistication. Imagine a rooftop wedding there with panoramic views of the city skyline.
Now that's a statement wedding.
It is.
Huh?
And let's not forget about Seville. It's got beautiful gardens, Moorish palaces, and flamenco rhythms. It's a passionate and unforgettable setting for a wedding.
Okay, so much to choose from. Bustling Barcelona, sophisticated Madrid, passionate Seville. Honestly, it's incredible how many options there are. But before we get swept away by all this Spanish romance, we need to talk about the practical stuff.
The legal requirements.
Exactly.
It might not be the most exciting part of wedding planning, but it's important. And trust me, it's totally manageable if you're organized and get a head start.
So what are the must-haves when it comes to the legal side of a Spanish wedding?
The key is to start early,
Yeah.
at least 6 months before your wedding date. That gives you plenty of time to gather those documents.
Like what kind of documents?
Passports, birth certificates, a certificate of no impediment to marriage. Basically a document stating you're free to marry. Got it.
And if applicable, you'll need divorce or death certificates. Oh, and don't forget, all documents need to be officially translated into Spanish.
Okay, so it sounds like there's quite a bit of paperwork involved.
There is, but it's all pretty straightforward. Proper planning prevents poor performance, right?
Absolutely. Now, while we're talking logistics, we should probably address residency requirements.
Right. Typically, you need to have lived in Spain for at least 2 years or hold Spanish citizenship to legally get married there.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, it's something many people aren't aware of. But if you don't meet those requirements, don't worry. You can still have a symbolic ceremony in Spain, the big celebration with all the heartfelt vows and personal touches, and then take care of the legal marriage in your home country.
That's good to know. So for those who do meet the residency requirements, what does the actual marriage license process look like in Spain?
Well, once you've gathered all your documents, you'll file an application at the local civil registry office in the area where you're getting married.
After filing, there's a 21-day waiting period, and then you're good to go. But remember, each region might have its own specific requirements, so double-check those details.
All right, so start early, gather your documents, check those residency requirements, file the application, and then you're off to celebrate. Now, all this talk of legalities and paperwork brings us to another important topic, budgeting.
And here's the good news. Spanish weddings can actually be more affordable than you think, especially if you're savvy with your planning.
Okay, spill the beans. What kind of strategies are we talking about?
Well, first off, flexibility is key. Think about getting married in the off-season November to April, excluding the holidays for potentially lower prices.
That's a good tip.
And those shoulder seasons can be just as beautiful as the peak season. You might even be able to snag those popular venues that get booked up quickly during the summer months.
Makes sense. What about location? We've talked about all these amazing places, but some are definitely going to be pricier than others.
Absolutely. Areas like Barcelona and Marbella are gorgeous, but they do come with a higher price tag. But there's so many hidden gems all over Spain that are just as beautiful and often more budget-friendly.
Like where?
Well, you could explore some of the less known but equally charming areas along the coast of Brava, or venture into the Andalusian countryside for a rustic and more affordable celebration.
So don't be afraid to think outside the box when it comes to location.
Exactly. Now, here's something that might surprise you. Embracing local traditions can actually save you money.
Really? How so?
Well, in Spain, many weddings are held on Fridays or Sundays, which tend to be less expensive than Saturdays.
Interesting. I never knew that.
It's a cultural difference that can work to your advantage. And another thing to consider is a weekday wedding. I don't know if your guests are already traveling for your big day, why not consider it Tuesday or Wednesday?
That's a great idea. I bet you could get some amazing deals on venues and vendors.
Exactly. And it might even free up your favorite vendors who are usually booked solid on the weekends.
Okay, I'm loving these unconventional approaches. What about the guest list? I know it's tempting to invite everyone, but could a smaller guest list help with the budget?
Definitely. While it's wonderful to celebrate with a huge crowd, a smaller, more intimate wedding can ease the financial burden. It's all about quality time over quantity. And remember, every person you invite adds to the overall cost.
That's a good point. And with a smaller guest list, you can really create a more personalized experience for each guest. Now let's talk about flowers. Those can be a big expense at any wedding. Any tips for saving money in that department?
Embrace seasonal and local blooms. Not only is it often more affordable, it's also more sustainable. And those Spanish flowers are truly stunning.
So ditch the imported orchids and let those Spanish sunflowers shine. I love it.
Exactly. And another thing to consider is skipping the open bar.
Oh, really? Is that common in Spain?
Open bars aren't as common in Spain as they are in other countries.
Yeah.
Serving wine and beer with dinner and then switching to a cash bar later in the evening is perfectly acceptable.
So that's a great way to save money on the alcohol.
It really is.
Okay, so we've talked about all these clever ways to save money, but what about the things you should splurge on? I mean, there are some things you just don't want to skimp on, right?
Absolutely. Photography and videography are definitely worth investing in. These are the memories you'll cherish forever, so finding a talented professional who captures the beauty and emotion of your day is essential.
I completely agree. What else deserves a spot on that splurge-worthy list?
Food and wine. Spanish cuisine is incredible. Treating your guests to a delicious meal with local wines is a must.
Oh, yes. Think paella, tapas, fresh seafood.
And those amazing Spanish wines.
Now, there's one more investment I think is worth considering. It's not something tangible like flowers or decorations, but it could make a huge difference in the planning process.
A wedding planner.
Exactly. I know it sounds like an added expense, but could it actually save you money in the long run?
Absolutely. A good wedding planner, especially for a destination wedding, can be invaluable. They know the local industry, they can negotiate with vendors on your behalf, and they can help you avoid those costly mistakes that can come up when you're planning from afar. Think of it as an investment in peace of mind and potentially even financial savings.
All right, so we've covered the legalities, budgeting, and those big picture decisions like location and season. But now comes the fun part, finding those perfect vendors who will bring your vision to life.
And that's where working with local talent really shines.
It makes sense.
It adds authentic Spanish flair to your wedding and can also be more cost-effective.
Okay, so let's talk strategy. How do you even begin to find those amazing local vendors? Where do you even start looking?
Well, the internet is a great resource. Many Spanish vendors have websites showcasing their work. For photographers and videographers, look for someone whose style resonates with you. Do they capture the light and colors of Spain in a way you love? Do their photos evoke the emotions you want to feel when you look back on your wedding day?
Those are great questions to ask yourself.
They are. And don't be shy about asking if they've worked at your chosen venue before. Local knowledge is priceless. And make sure you feel comfortable communicating with them. You want to be able to clearly express your vision and feel confident that they understand you.
That's so important.
It is. And don't forget about reviews. Websites like Wedding Wire are great for reading real feedback from couples who've actually worked with those vendors. It gives you a genuine insight into their professionalism, their communication style, and the overall experience.
Okay, so you've found some potential vendors, you've checked their websites, you've read the reviews. What's next?
Reach out to them, schedule video calls. It's a great way to get a feel for their personality and see if you click. Remember, you'll be spending a lot of time with these vendors on your wedding day, so you want to make sure you feel comfortable with them.
That's a good point.
Now, let's talk about flowers. Those Spanish florists have access to some of the most vibrant and beautiful blooms in the world.
I can only imagine. So many colors and textures. It's amazing.
It is. When you're looking for a florist, Find someone who has experience with weddings. They should be able to show you examples of their work, guide you on what's in season, and help you create arrangements that capture the essence of your Spanish wedding.
What about sharing inspiration photos?
Oh, absolutely. Share those inspiration photos with your florist. They can often recreate the looks you love using local materials, but also be open to their suggestions. They might have even better ideas that would work perfectly in a Spanish setting.
I love that. Collaboration is key.
It is. Now, food. Spanish cuisine is a highlight, so choosing the right caterer is crucial.
Absolutely.
Look for someone who specializes in weddings and can offer a mix of traditional Spanish dishes and your personal favorites. And if your venue has in-house catering, that can simplify things.
What about the cake?
Ah, the cake. Seek out local pastry chefs or bakeries known for their wedding cakes. Spanish wedding cakes are often less elaborate than those of other countries, but they're absolutely delicious. You could even have a traditional Spanish cake alongside a smaller cake in your preferred style.
Now that's a great idea. Okay, any other advice for finding those perfect vendors?
Don't hesitate to ask for references or examples of previous work. Many vendors are used to working with couples planning destination weddings and are happy to hop on a video call to discuss your vision in detail. And most importantly, trust your gut. Choose vendors whose work you love and who make you feel comfortable and understood. With the right team, your Spanish wedding will be magical.
Okay, so we've tackled the big vendors, photography, flowers, food. But let's talk about something equally important, making sure your guests have a comfortable and enjoyable stay.
It's so important. When you're having a destination wedding, you're essentially hosting a multi-day event. So thinking about your guests' needs and comfort throughout their stay is crucial.
Right. We've talked about choosing a location they can easily reach and a season that offers pleasant weather, but what about accommodations?
Well, Spain offers a variety of options to suit different budgets and preferences. You've got hotels, which are really convenient, especially if they offer wedding packages that include guest rooms.
And many hotels have amenities like daily housekeeping, restaurants, sometimes even spas.
Exactly. And then you've got vacation rentals, apartments, villas. Those are perfect for families or groups traveling together.
Rentals often offer more space, the ability to cook meals, and a more immersive local experience.
We do. So when you're deciding between hotels and rentals, think about the location in relation to your venue, the length of their stay, and their budget.
And whether they're traveling solo, as couples, or with families.
Exactly. Ideally, offering both options gives your guests the freedom to choose what works best for them.
And here's a pro tip. No matter what type of accommodation you choose, always ask about group discounts.
Oh, absolutely. Many hotels are happy to offer reduced rates for wedding blocks.
The key is to start early. As soon as you've set your date and chosen a venue, start looking into accommodations.
And don't be afraid to negotiate those rates, especially if you're booking a large number of rooms.
Another important point is to read the fine print and understand the terms of the group booking.
Yes. Things like how long that reduced rate is available, blackout dates, if there's a minimum number of rooms required to secure the discount.
And remember, while it's great to help your guests find accommodations, you're not responsible for covering their costs.
Exactly. Your job is to provide them with options and information. Make their planning a little easier.
Now, let's talk about the final piece of the puzzle, transportation.
Ah, yes. Getting everyone where they need to be on time and without any stress is crucial. It's all about creating a seamless and enjoyable experience for your guests from the moment they arrive in Spain.
Okay, so how do we make that happen? What are our options?
Well, Spain has an excellent transportation system. Let's start with getting around the country in general. For traveling between major cities, the high-speed train network, the AVE, is fantastic.
I've heard great things about the AVE.
It's fast, it's comfortable, and often cheaper than flying.
And what about reaching those smaller towns that might not be on the AVE route?
Buses are a great option for that.
Yeah.
Companies like ALSA have routes all over the country.
Got it.
And of course, most Spanish cities have reliable taxi services. And ride-sharing apps like Uber or the local app Cabify are also widely available, especially in the bigger cities.
Now, what if your wedding is in a more rural area?
Some guests might want to rent a car in that case. Just remind them that in Spain, they drive on the right side of the road and to familiarize themselves with local traffic laws.
Right. What about getting around within the cities?
Larger cities like Madrid and Barcelona have excellent metro and bus systems that are easy to use and affordable. Encourage your guests to get a multi-day pass if they plan on doing some exploring.
That's a great tip.
It's also super helpful to create a little guide with this transportation information and some local tips specific to your wedding location. You can include that on your wedding website.
Okay, so we've covered the basics of getting around Spain. Now let's zoom in on those all-important airport transfers. We want to make sure your guests can easily get from the airport to their accommodation.
Absolutely. If you have many guests arriving around the same time, consider arranging a group shuttle. It can be more cost-effective than individual taxis.
And for those VIP guests or those who prefer a little more privacy, maybe arrange a private car service.
That's a good idea. And if your venue is in a major city with good public transport links, that might be the most convenient option. Just provide clear instructions.
And adding a personal touch can go a long way. If possible, have someone or a small team at the airport to greet guests and guide them to their transportation.
That's such a nice gesture.
It is. It makes them feel welcomed from the moment they step off the plane.
It's also a good idea to give them an information packet, local maps, important addresses, contact numbers, just in case.
Okay, so we've covered getting to Spain, getting from the airport to their accommodations. What about the wedding day itself?
The wedding day. Well, if the ceremony and reception are in different locations, definitely arrange transportation between the two.
What are some good options for that?
Coaches are great for larger groups. Or if it's a smaller wedding, something like tuk-tuks can be a fun touch.
Oh, that's cute.
And if guests are driving, make sure there's ample parking at both the ceremony and reception venues.
Nobody wants to be stressing about parking on their wedding day.
Exactly. And don't forget about getting everyone back to their accommodations after the reception. You might want to arrange a shuttle service or provide information on local taxi companies they can contact.
And what about the day after the wedding?
If you're planning a day after brunch or activity, don't forget to arrange transportation for that as well. It's those little details that show your guests you've thought of everything.
They really do.
It's always a nice touch to provide a list of reliable local transport options in their welcome bags or on your wedding website. Gives them the freedom to explore if they want.
I like that. So remember, everyone, good transportation planning can really enhance your guest's experience. It shows that you've thought about their comfort and want them to enjoy every moment of the celebration. And that's what it's all about, right? Creating a memorable and stress-free experience for everyone. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. We still have more to cover before you're fully prepared for your dream Spanish wedding.
Stay tuned, because next we're diving into those special touches that make a wedding truly unforgettable.
Wow, we've covered so much already, from those amazing venues and vibrant Spanish traditions to the practicalities of legalities and budgeting. We've even mapped out how to find those perfect vendors for your big day.
And don't forget about those guests traveling all that way to celebrate with you.
That's right. A destination wedding is a multi-day event, so making sure your guests feel welcomed and comfortable is key. And speaking of making guests feel welcome, we've mentioned those welcome bags a few times. I'm thinking something that just screams, "Welcome to Spain." What should we pack in there?
Well, first and foremost, a warm welcome note. A handwritten card goes a long way, you know. It's that personal touch that shows you care.
That's true. Little details like that make a big difference. Okay, we've got the warm fuzzies covered. What about the practical stuff? I'm all about those things that make a trip run smoothly.
Absolutely. A map of the local area is a must-have. Highlight key places like your venue, some restaurants you recommend, maybe some local sites to see.
Yeah, give them a chance to really experience Spain, right?
Exactly. Now, to really immerse them in the Spanish experience, how about some local treats?
Ooh, I like where this is going.
Maybe a small bottle of Spanish olive oil, a bar of artisan soap, or some gourmet Spanish tea.
Ooh, those are good. What about something to help them beat the heat, especially if we're talking about a summer wedding?
A folding fan is both practical and a fun souvenir. You could even personalize them with your wedding date or a thank you note.
Oh, I love that. I can already picture those fans swaying during the ceremony. So chic. What about something specifically for the wedding day itself? Just in case those Spanish rays get a little too intense.
Right. If your ceremony's outdoors, definitely provide sunscreen. And maybe even some parasols for those who need a bit of extra shade. It's all about anticipating their needs and making them comfortable.
Those thoughtful touches can make all the difference. Now, what about after the party? Let's be honest, Spanish fiestas can get pretty wild.
They can. A mini hangover kit could be a lifesaver. Include things like pain relievers, electrolyte powder, even some breath mints.
I love it. Practical and funny. Okay, so we've got the welcome bags packed with goodies, but how about keeping guests entertained beyond the wedding events themselves?
Absolutely. This is their chance to experience Spain. Why not incorporate some optional activities? Maybe a tapas tour or a flamenco show. even a day trip to a nearby town or vineyard.
I love those ideas. Now, I'm all about personalization. Is there a way to tailor those activities to each guest's interests?
Definitely. How about creating personalized itineraries? If someone's an art enthusiast, you could suggest museum, foodies, point them to some hidden culinary gems.
Wow. Talk about personalized attention. Okay, let's shift gears a bit and talk about the vibe of the wedding itself. What kind of atmosphere can couples create in Spain?
Oh, Spain is so versatile. You could have a relaxed bohemian beach wedding or a grand, elegant affair in a historic castle. It really depends on the couple's style.
I'm picturing a rustic outdoor reception under twinkling lights, long tables with amazing Spanish food, laughter filling the warm night air.
Oh, that sounds magical. Don't forget about the music. Spain has such a rich musical heritage. You could have a live flamenco performance for a burst of energy and passion,
Ooh, I love that.
or a DJ playing a mix of Spanish and international hits to keep everyone dancing.
Or even a traditional Spanish guitarist during cocktail hour. So romantic.
It is.
Speaking of romance, let's talk about adding Spanish touches to the ceremony itself. We've talked about the orange blossom crown, but how else can couples bring in that Spanish spirit?
Well, you could include readings or vows in Spanish, even if you don't speak the language.
Oh, that's a lovely idea.
You can have a translator read them. It adds a really special touch.
It does. And we have to talk about incorporating those delicious Spanish flavors into the menu.
Oh, the food. It's definitely one of the best parts of a Spanish wedding.
I completely agree.
Think paella cooked over an open fire, a colorful spread of tapas, fresh seafood.
Don't forget those delicious Spanish wines.
Right. And for dessert, that traditional Spanish wedding cake we talked about earlier, often made with almonds and soaked in a sweet syrup. It's a real treat.
Okay, now I'm starving. We've covered so much from the big decisions to the smallest details that add a touch of personality and charm. What's your final piece of advice for couples dreaming of a Spanish wedding?
Embrace the Spanish spirit of celebration. Spaniards are known for their warmth, their love of life. They really know how to have a good time. Let that spirit infuse your wedding day. Don't be afraid to let go. Enjoy every moment. Create memories that will last a lifetime.
That's beautiful advice. So true. A wedding is a celebration of love, and Spain provides that perfect backdrop for that celebration to unfold. But we can't forget about the practical side. Any last tips for navigating the planning process?
Don't be afraid to ask for help, whether it's from a wedding planner, local vendors, even friends and family who've been to Spain. Tap into those resources. And remember, planning a wedding, especially a destination wedding, can be stressful. So take breaks, breathe, and remind yourself what this is all about, celebrating your love with the people you care about most.
That's great advice. And even though we've gone pretty deep into the details of planning a Spanish wedding, there's always more to discover.
This deep dive is really just the beginning. There's so much to explore, from regional specialties to hidden gems waiting to be discovered. So let your curiosity guide you and have fun.
I love that. Let your curiosity guide you and have fun. That's the perfect motto for any wedding planning journey. Speaking of exciting details, let's talk photography. I mean, Spain is basically begging to be photographed. How can couples make the most of that scenery and capture those perfect memories?
Light is so important in photography, and Spain has an abundance of it. Think about the golden hour, that magical time just after sunrise or before sunset. It creates a warm, romantic glow. Perfect for wedding photos.
So schedule those portrait sessions for those times, right?
Absolutely. And think about locations that really showcase Spain's unique beauty. If you're having a beach wedding, those dramatic coastal views. For a countryside wedding, those rolling hills and vineyards.
I can already picture it.
Right. Now, how about incorporating some Spanish flair into the photos themselves?
I like it. Tell me more.
Ask your photographer to capture those candid moments of you and your guests enjoying those traditions. The rice throwing, the cutting of the groom's tie. It brings your wedding album to life.
I love that idea. Those little details really make all the difference. And what about the overall style of the pictures?
Well, Spain is a beautiful backdrop for both classic, timeless photos and more artistic shots. It really comes down to your preference. Talk to your photographer about your vision and look at their portfolio to see if their style matches what you're imagining.
Great advice. Now let's talk about those little details that personalize the experience and make it truly unique. How can couples add those special touches?
Think about incorporating some Spanish elements into your decor. You could use those colorful Spanish tiles as table numbers or place cards, or hand-painted fans as wedding favors.
Oh, those are beautiful and practical, especially in the Spanish heat.
Exactly. And don't forget about traditional Spanish pottery. Those earthy tones and intricate designs add a touch of rustic elegance.
Ooh, I love that. What about the flowers? Are there any specific Spanish flowers that would add a special touch?
Oh, absolutely. Sunflowers are a beautiful symbol of happiness and joy, and they add a cheerful pop of color. And of course, you can use those fragrant orange blossoms, not just for the bridal crown, but also in bouquets and centerpieces.
So romantic. And how about incorporating Spanish flavors into those personal touches?
Well, how about a welcome drink station with traditional Spanish beverages like sangria or horchata?
Perfect way to greet your guests and immediately immerse them in that Spanish experience.
Exactly. Or set up a tapas bar during cocktail hour.
Yeah.
It's a fun, interactive way to showcase Spanish flavors.
Speaking of cocktail hour, what are some Spanish-inspired signature cocktails we could suggest? I love those personalized touches.
Well, classic sangria is always a crowd pleaser. But you could also get creative with cocktails using Spanish ingredients like sherry, vermouth,
Mm-hmm.
even those vibrant citrus fruits. How about a refreshing Sevilla sunset? Orange juice, sherry, and a splash of sparkling wine.
Oh, that sounds delicious. What about non-alcoholic options?
Agua de Valencia is a fantastic choice. It's orange juice, cava, that's Spanish sparkling wine gin, and vodka. And for a non-alcoholic version, simply omit the alcohol and add some sparkling water.
Perfect. Okay, we've covered a lot here, from those big decisions to the little details that add that special touch. What are your final thoughts on creating an unforgettable Spanish wedding?
It's all about finding that balance between embracing those rich traditions and adding your own personal style. Don't be afraid to be creative. Think outside the box and have fun with the planning process. It's a celebration of your love, and it should reflect you as a couple.
That's beautifully said. And remember, everyone, this deep dive is just the beginning. There's so much more to discover as you explore those regional specialties and uncover those hidden gems that make Spain so special.
So let your imagination run wild. Create a wedding that's unique and special as your love story.
And on that note, we'll leave you to dive deeper into your dream Spanish wedding. Until next time, happy planning. Okay, so we've covered those amazing venues, the traditions, how to capture those picture-perfect memories. But now I think it's time to talk about the ceremony itself, the heart of it all. What advice do you have for couples who want to create a ceremony that really reflects the spirit of Spain?
Well, I think it's important to embrace simplicity. You know, Spanish weddings aren't really about extravagant displays. They're more about genuine emotion and connection. Focus on what truly matters to you as a couple. Let the beauty of Spain and the warmth of your loved ones create that magical atmosphere.
Less is more. Focus on the heart of it all. I love that. But let's talk about some of the logistics. We've talked about those beautiful outdoor venues, but what about actually having a ceremony under the Spanish sun?
Shade is your friend, especially during those warmer months. Definitely think about providing parasols for your guests, or even incorporating a canopy into your setup. You know, maybe even using some of that natural shade. And don't forget, those Spanish sunsets are incredible. So a late afternoon or early evening ceremony can create a really romantic atmosphere with that golden hour light.
And it's probably a little bit cooler then too, right?
Exactly.
Now, I'm fascinated by all the symbolism woven into Spanish wedding traditions. We've talked about the orange blossom crown and the arras. Are there other symbolic elements couples could include in their ceremony?
Definitely. One tradition I find really touching is the unity candle. The couple lights a single candle together, symbolizing the joining of their lives, creating a new family. It's a beautiful representation of their commitment.
It is. It's such a universal symbol of unity, perfect for a wedding. Now let's talk about something I know our listeners are always excited to hear about: fashion. What are some of the key elements of Spanish bridal style?
I'd say Spanish brides often embrace that classic, elegant aesthetic. Simple silhouettes, luxurious fabrics, subtle embellishments. Lace is really popular, as are delicate beading and embroidery, and of course the traditional mantilla veil, a lace or silk veil worn over the head and shoulders, adds a touch of drama and sophistication.
It's so iconic, that mantilla veil. Now, what about the groom? What does a stylish Spanish groom wear for his big day?
Well, Spanish grooms usually go for a classic suit or tuxedo.
Yeah.
Navy blue and charcoal gray are really popular. Or for a summer wedding, maybe a lighter shade like beige or light gray. And they can add a touch of Spanish flair through accessories, like a patterned tie or pocket square.
So classic elegance with the personal touch. I like it. Now, what about the rest of the wedding party? Any specific traditions or style guidelines for bridesmaids and groomsmen in Spain?
Bridesmaids often wear dresses in coordinating colors rather than matching gowns. This allows each bridesmaid to express her own style, but still have a cohesive look. And groomsmen typically wear suits that complement the groom's attire. So the whole wedding party has that polished look.
It's all about that coordination. Now, what about the guests? Any dress code they should be aware of?
Well, Spanish weddings are usually pretty formal events, so guests should dress accordingly. For women, that means cocktail dresses or elegant evening wear. Men would typically wear a suit or dress pants with a button-down shirt and tie. Of course, it's always a good idea to check with the couple, see if there's a specific dress code or theme.
Definitely. Now let's talk about something that's often overlooked but can really enhance the overall experience, wedding favors. What are some unique Spanish-inspired favors that couples could give?
Well, you want to give something that reflects those Spanish flavors or traditions. Mini bottles of local wine or olive oil are always popular choices. Or how about small jars of honey from a local apiary? You could even personalize them with a custom label.
Oh, those are lovely. And so practical, too. Now let's talk about the music. What are your tips for creating that perfect Spanish fiesta atmosphere?
Spanish music is all about passion and energy. Consider hiring a live band that specializes in flamenco or traditional Spanish music. They'll get everyone up and dancing. And a DJ who can play a mix of Spanish and international hits is always a good option for keeping that party going.
Absolutely. Now, any thoughts on those special songs for the first dance or the father-daughter dance? Are there any traditional Spanish songs that would add a romantic touch?
Bésame mucho is a classic Spanish love song that you often hear at weddings. Really beautiful romantic choice for a first dance. And for the father-daughter dance, how about Gracias a la vida? It's a heartfelt song about gratitude and love.
Those are beautiful choices. As we wrap up our deep dive into Spanish weddings, what final piece of advice would you give to couples planning their dream Spanish wedding?
Embrace the unexpected. Planning a wedding, especially a destination wedding, can be a bit unpredictable at times. There might be a few bumps along the way, but it's those unexpected moments, those little surprises, that often become the most cherished memories. So go with the flow, be open to new experiences, and most importantly, enjoy every step of this journey.
That's such great advice. It's all about embracing the adventure and creating a celebration that reflects your unique love story. So, to all our listeners out there dreaming of a Spanish wedding, stay true to yourselves, embrace the beauty and warmth of Spain, and have fun. We'll be here cheering you on every step of the way. Until next time, happy planning.